everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome to OpenInfra Live, our new weekly hour-long interactive content series sharing production case studies, open source demos, industry conversations, and the latest updates from the global open infrastructure community. This is our third episode and we have some great content coming up in the next few weeks. So hope you can join us every Thursday at 14 UTC streaming on YouTube. My name is Kendall Waters Perez, and I will be your MC for the day. And let's go ahead and get started. So last week, we held our 9th Project Teams Gathering. For those who may not be familiar, the Project Teams Gathering, or PTG, is an event organized by the Open Infrastructure Foundation. It provides meeting facilities allowing the various technical community groups working on open infra projects to meet in person, or rather virtually in these times, exchange and get work done in productive setting. It lets those various groups discuss their priorities for the upcoming 6 months, assign work items, iterate quickly on solutions for complex problems, and make fast progress on critical issues. Last week, we had 47 project teams meet, which consisted of over 500 contributors from over 45 different countries. Today, we're going to hear from a few of those teams and what they discussed and worked on during their PTG week. With that, I will hand it over to Fabiano Fidencio from Kata Containers. Sorry for the bad pronunciation on your name.
That's cool. Hello, everyone. I am Fabiano Fidencio. I've been working on Kata Containers for a little bit more than 1 year now, and I am member of the architecture committee of the project for 6 months. And this was the first VPTG that I've been actually organizing, helping to organize as part of the Kata Containers. We can go to the next slide. So before talking about this VPTG, we have to talk about the previous one, because the previous one was not exactly what we wanted to be. We didn't have that many people attending, and we didn't have that much planning around that, and most likely it happened because of what I think it was bad timing. So let me just go a little bit through this. The whole thing was happening just after the Kata Containers election. That was like changing people who were pretty much steering the project. And the most important part that was happening in the middle of the 2.0.0 release, which was one of the most important milestones we had last year. With those two pressing things happening, a lot of changes happening, we didn't have a lot of time to actually plan the event. So we didn't have, what we ended up doing was pretty much having 2 or 3 sessions in different time zones, so we could try to get people from US and China together, people from Europe and China together, and then people from Europe and US together. Pretty much like those 3. And the first one, we didn't have, like the first slot, which was like US and Asia, we didn't have that many attendants. Afternoon was even worse, so that was something that we were not exactly proud of. We didn't make any progress on that, and then for this year, well, for this edition, we were actually considering like, shall we do this or shall we not? Then we can go to the next slide. So we had a discussion within the team when the email from Kendall came about, hey, we have this VPTG, and shall we do something for this edition or not, considering like what happened in the previous one. We discussed it between the team, we discussed it as part of the architecture committee meeting, and we decided to do, but we decided to do this in a totally different format than what we had before. Instead of having 3 different slots, we said, like, let's just go with 1 slot. It's gonna be 2 p.m. UTC. I know like this is like a little bit too late for folks in Asia, but not too late. It's a little bit early for folks in the Americas, but not too early. And well, Europe, we are like tea time here. So we decided to do this slot, 3 hours, and instead of having presentations as we had before, we decided to just open the floor for the community. We sent some emails, some tweets were done. We sent some messages in the channels, and just asking the community, hey, come here, talk to us. What do you want to know about the project? What do you want to learn about the project? Do you have something that you would like to share with us about the project? Some hacks that you are doing that we are not aware of? So I would say like this was also not much planning, but at least we had one solid plan that was way, way simpler than we had in the past. And the timing in this situation also helped a lot because we were not in the middle of a release. Actually, one of the things that we planned was what are the steps that we're going to take for the next release. We were not in the middle of we're not in a transition period between old members of the architecture committee and new members. For two reasons. The elections happened like a little bit before, but the members that got the seat, they were part of the community already. They were there, they were present already, so not many changes happening. And this was pretty much the background of how it happened. Next slide, please. So we did this, and what we did was what we call like, let's do these office hours, right? We just, the most part of the developers just show up there and we can discuss with the community. Like we get to know what are the community issues. During this block of 3 hours that we were there, we got the least amount of people who were present there were 6 people. There are 6 people, and then there were like the maximum was around 16 people, 15, 16. And we had the participation of companies, people working from companies like Financial, Apple, IBM, Intel, OVH Cloud, which is a new company that just joined, started collaborating with Kata Containers a few weeks before, not even that. And also Red Hat. I work for Red Hat, by the way, so we were there. And during these 3 hours, we end up discussing around 10 different topics, which were from documentations to improve the usability of the project, how we should, simple things, right? Like really simple ways to improve our documentation from the user point of view, like what they are looking for when they join or they get to the project web page and what should be done in order to improve it. Passing by really technical topics like the way to get to know or to do a GPU pass-through, to play with node feature discoverability and these kind of things that will help the project to be deployed in a cluster in an environment that is not exactly the default one, right? Because we would be needing like pass-through and this kind of stuff. We end up with around 10 issues open because for every topic that we discussed, we were asking people, can you please open an issue for this? Like then we can summarize it there, summarizing the issue, the discussion we had here. And I can tell you, it was great. It was the best virtual event that I was part of in the last 1 year. So I can tell you, this format worked quite well for us. Most likely, we are going to adopt the same format for the next VPTG. And Sunny Chai, who is part of the OpenInfra, she's working on a blog post together with the information that I forwarded to her. So wait that we are going to publish a blog post about this. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much from my side. Office hours, that was a plus. And we're going to try to follow the same format for the next one. And that's all from me.
Great. Thank you so much, Fabiano. So next up, we have Rico Lin to talk about the multi-arch SIG.
Hi, I'm Rico from Stack. I'm also serve as a multi-arch SIG chair. So I guess I'm here to share some of our exciting news back in the PTG and things we discussed there. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. So I think we have very good PTG this like previous week. We have making a very productive discussion there. But before we have everything start for discuss about PTG, I must give some thanks to open source staff from Oregon State University. I'm also thanks to Linaro. These two organizations, they donate CI resources to OpenInfra Foundation. And for those CPU architectures that other than x86, that's why we can push something here in the multi-arch SIG. So I thank to those organizations who help to donate. So the very first thing we have discussed is that we have very successful running job for ARM64 environment for to running full 10 pass tests, and so that's kind of like the very highlight we have for inside our PTGs is to discuss what can we do next, and also how can we tune in the performance, and also how can we keep pushing things forward. And I guess that's also things that folks from Montreal State get excited, because it's like we finally have something that is very useful, and the success of such a job that proved that OpenStack can support for ARM64 from the communities, and we can start to think about more complex tests. So I think that's very good. That's very good progress we make. The thing is that the performance might relate to a lot of stuff. So that's something that we've been discussing about in the PTG. Like how can we switch to other scenarios that more facing the user need, or can we like to tune in the performance by switching the backend? So you can see there's a lot of various discussions we have, and also we keep thinking how can we like have a better support in terms of building images, in terms of have more project for unit test, and also we also discuss how can we improve the periodic task of the current CI environment to including more multi-arch job there. But for now, that in reality, in the community, we only have 64 environments to run. So that would be something we as community that to pushing forward at the very first step is to have better ARM64 support. But on the way, we also kind of have other architecture as well. Since in reality there's in reality that most of the non-x86 architecture usually share the exactly same issues for inside services. So that will be a very big stage that we took on, is to have better ARM64 support. And in our PDGs, we also discuss about to have the SIG report and how can we do the next step. So if you click the link inside the slides, you will go to the multi-arch SIG report, which we generated at the previous weeks. We will try to do more in the following month, but we'll see how many resources we got and how many volunteers we have, and also how can we get to like it's interesting to what kind of story kind of a work. So in PTG we have like we have go through the report and try to figure out which part of it is more like will be more get user demanded, and also trying to fix some of the typos, but which I generated. But the thing is that the report is very exciting, and we're very thankful for OpenInfra Foundation's help. We definitely will do one for, I hope, for in next month. Also, we have talked about the SIG video, but that will be something we have as a concept to see if we can using the video stream to do more share of content and share user stories, and also to check Liver 7 with the CPU stuff. For who don't know, that Liver is something we're running for as a backend for our most of our visualizations inside and along with Unity inside Nova. So it's very essential for us as a multi-upstate to try to figure out how we can have better support and what is the new thing in Level 7, because we kind of like facing some of the issues in Nova, and which is we have to keep tracking with what is currently changing. So that's the only way we can make sure that for multi-ops, for like different kinds of CPU architecture will always get supported by OpenStack, which we keep trying to catch up with all updates. And our way we are targeting all above CI jobs in the task we are reviewing. We also take spots from project process to make sure that OpenStack gets up to date with whatever the the multiple CPU architecture can do. So I guess that's all we have for multi-upstate report for PTG. But if you are interested, please join us in our multi-upstate meeting, and we also have IRC channel, so you can find us there. That's all I have for PTG. Thanks.
Thank you, Rico. Next, we are going to talk with Greg Waines, and he's going to tell us more about StarlingX and what they talked about.
Hey, it's Greg Waines here. I'm a new TSC member for StarlingX, and actually been with the StarlingX project since its inception. So yeah, I have 3 slides. Maybe if you can go to the first slide. I want to take opportunity just because StarlingX still struggles with a lot of people not understanding exactly what it is. So I wanted to just do 1 slide, kind of brief introduction on that. So StarlingX provides basically a hybrid cloud platform solution. So we provide both a Kubernetes cloud as well as an OpenStack cloud in our deployment. We're also like a full kind of soup to nuts solution, basically fully managed, fully integrated, basically ready to deploy. There's no kind of integration required at the over and above what StarlingX provides. So StarlingX, the software itself, is really just all the infrastructure management around managing the cloud servers and managing all the cloud software that's integrated into the solution. And besides the core kind of Kubernetes and OpenStack services, we're also providing kind of ecosystem of packaged pre-integrated open source projects that provide integrated services that our hosted applications can actually leverage. So this includes things like Nginx, Cert Manager, Dex, Vault, Keras, Metric Server. There's a whole bunch of them that we're continuing to kind of expand and grow. So there's a rich environment for the hosted apps after they deploy themselves. And then also a big key feature of StarlingX is that we are optimized for the edge, and kind of two key points related to that is really just because we scale both large and small. Like we can deploy on like a single socket Xeon server, single server at the edge, as well as kind of the traditional multi-node architecture at the central cloud. And then the other key kind of edge enabling capability that we have is we do have a distributed multi-cloud solution that basically manages multiple edge clouds with a lot of orchestration services to make it operationally not as operationally prohibitive to manage all those edge clouds. We have a lot of orchestration services that do things automated across all the edge clouds. Okay, maybe go to the next slide and I'll just chat about things we chatted at. So we had a good 3 days of meetings at the PTG last week. First, just talk about some of the retrospective stuff that we we did, we had, we're about to release kind of our 5th release in May. So we're right near the end of that. So there's a bit of a retrospective on how well some of the features did. Just for information purposes, I listed a few of them here. Some of the, we actually, that was one kind of, well, not one, but a positive note from the PTG from the previous year is that we actually had quite a large, feature content for our R5 release. This is only a subset of the features that we added. But we added some kind of really nice ones, like Edge Worker actually is a really nice feature where basically enables the integration of any Kubernetes capable device. So it's not running the StarlingX software itself, so that it means that, as long as the device, runs Kubernetes, it can be any processor architecture, any OS, whatever, as small a form factor as you want. As long as you can do Kubernetes, with the Edge Worker stuff that was done, you can integrate it. You can basically integrate it into the StarlingX Kubernetes cluster, and then that enables tons of stuff, right? In the sense that I have a single point of management of my containerized apps across, full StarlingX worker nodes versus these Edge Worker nodes. And those Edge Worker nodes can now leverage every service in the StarlingX cluster, like it can leverage, the Ceph-backed PDCs for persisting data. It can leverage, the metric server for being able to auto scale its apps and junk like that. So that was a really cool feature. Some of the other ones were Rook. We added Rook. We currently have a Ceph cluster that's kind of a host-based managed one where Rook provides a much nicer, much more cloud-native type solution for StarlingX. We continue to evolve our ecosystems with Vault, which is like a secret manager, Proteus, which is a container image signature check. Validation type admission controller, and metric server is kind of a Kubernetes solution for doing auto scaling. We added SMP v3. We previously supported v2. We support v3 now, which provides better authentication and privacy. We continue to evolve our. We added certificate management type simplifications. We had integrated Cert Manager into our product in our previous release, and now we're starting to take advantage of it in our platform. We added it in the previous release so that our hosted apps could leverage it. Now we're getting our platform to leverage it. And Cert Manager is all around enabling the ability to automate the renewal of certificates, because that's an operational headache, and what ends up happening is people put long expiries on certificates, which is not a secure solution. So Cert Manager automation is a big thing. A lot of our wireless solutions users were requiring FPGA acceleration for kind of 5G applications. So we added management of the FPGA loads into our infrastructure management and orchestration across the distributed clouds, and also added in kind of just a higher level abstraction of the Kubernetes upgrade, the stuff that's upstream. And some of the things we were looking to improve on, we definitely had long discussions on supporting new users of StarlingX in the community. Kicked around a number of ideas around mailing lists, IRC, workshops, office hours, definitely a number of items that we want to take actions on because we want to continue to support new users. And then in addition to new users, also to identify users that we have, both existing and new, that are potential contributors, and work with them to support them. StarlingX is a big project, and it needs support from existing contributors in order to bring in new contributors. So there's a lot of talk about how we get commitment from kind of existing contributors to support the new ones. Okay, if you go to the next slide, this is just my last slide. We also spent a day talking about what's next in release 6. as everybody knows, kind of CentOS is going away. Like I mentioned, StarlingX is like a soup to nuts solution, so it does include the kernel. So we need to do some work to get off CentOS. We're moving to a Debian solution, and so there was a lot of talks about, this is a big change for StarlingX because we have a build environment that's based on the OS, as well as all the packaging, as well as the practicality that a lot of the StarlingX infrastructure management has got to do tweaks in order to run on the new OS. So that's a lot. It'll be a lot of work for us. Probably just prep work in R6, and then we'll move in R7. We're gonna just do kind of standard up versioning on things like Kubernetes. I should have had OpenStack in there as well. Containerd, etcd, all that stuff. We're going to do some scaling work on distributed cloud solution. Our distributed cloud solution right now supports 200 edge subclouds, but we're getting pushed by users that are adopting it to get bigger, 1,000 edge clouds. They want the simplicity of one central cloud to manage as many edge subclouds as possible because of our orchestration services that run at the central cloud. We're going to continue to do certificate management work, kind of getting all our certificates, managed in an automated fashion through Cert Manager. There's some logging work we're doing, as well as some fault management integration into our containerized OpenStack solution. So we had actually a good turnout for the PTG, and I think we're kind of psyched up for kind of the next release.
Thank you, Greg. It seems like y'all were very busy last week.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Ildiko Vancha to talk about the Edge Computing Group.
Thank you, Kendall. Similarly to Greg, I also wanted to take the approach to introduce the Edge Computing Group first, in case there are people in the audience who do not know what this group is and what we do. So this is a top-level working group that is supported by the OpenInfra Foundation. We look at edge computing as an evolution path that extends data centers out to the edge. And with that, it also brings computing power and cloud closer to the end users, let them be humans or machines. So in that sense, we don't only focus on the edges themselves, but we look at edge infrastructure as massively distributed systems. So what we do on a more daily basis is that we are collecting use cases so that we can analyze them to see the requirements and demands towards these edge infrastructures. And based on the information that we collect, we then go and build reference architecture models and see how we can turn them into implementations. And with that, we do some testing and evaluation work, and we share all our findings with adjacent communities and anyone who's interested in that information in the form of white papers and other resources that you can find on our wiki page. The links are all on the slides that you will have available after the show. So you can read the 2 white papers that the working group published already, and you can also see all the other resources that we have on the wiki page, including how to get in contact with us, like weekly meetings or the mailing lists. And now we can jump to the next slide with for the short PTG summary that I prepared for you. So as I mentioned, what we do first is collecting use cases. So we have, I believe, around 30 or 40 use cases identified already, but they are kind of focusing a bit on the telecommunications industry, for instance, because 5G and edge computing are going hand in hand. So obviously that was our first focus area as well, because when it comes to edge computing, connectivity is really important because that's what brings you the edge functionality. And with that, now that we have more and more production deployments in that area, we are looking closely into new use cases in different industry segments. A good example is industrial, for instance, with the digital transformation. The factory floors are also turning into IT systems, and with that, they are also becoming a new and exciting edge computing use case for us as well that we are looking into. So you will probably hear things like digital twins more and more these days. Another area that we are looking into is broadcasting, and also a bit in connection to that, events and stadiums, and how those are also turning into an edge computing use case with providing network access and also broadcasting live streams about the events that are happening either in a stadium or somewhere remotely, like a festival. You can think of where you don't really have infrastructure built out already. So you have to think about something that you have to move there, provide the connectivity, and provide features and functionality to people who are attending those more remote events. Another area that has been in discussion for a while, and with COVID happening, it is also in focus, is healthcare, and how you can bring doctors to people without them necessarily going into a hospital or a doctor's office. So these are kind of new use cases that we are looking into, and with those use cases, we also see how the edge computing space is evolving, like talking about microclouds and how a microcloud looks like, and what you need in terms of hardware resources, and also what kind of infrastructure software services are running on these. So after the use cases discussion, we went back to the reference architectures topic. To get you a bit of a context, I put two diagrams on this slide, so you can take a look at a closer look after the show when you can zoom in. So we are looking into these massive distributed systems from the connectivity perspective, and what do I mean by that is what happens if you lose connection between a central cloud and the edge site, because in that case, based on the use case, you may want your edge site to be fully autonomous and have all functionality available there, or maybe it is perfectly enough for you if your workloads will keep running, and then the edge site can synchronize with the central cloud once the connectivity is back on. So we were looking into the architecture big picture with this mindset, and started to kind of build out these two main architecture models, the centralized control plane, as we call it, and the distributed control plane. So Greg was talking about StarlingX a bit earlier, and StarlingX is applying the distributed control plane architecture model, for instance. So that means that you get control services on both the central cloud and the edge sites, which means that the edge site has a smaller footprint for workloads, but in return, you have all the functionality available, even if there's no connection on a temporary basis with the central cloud. And you can see on the other diagram that we have mainly compute and storage services running there to ensure that the workloads have everything that they need, and they can also store data in case needed. So we have some implementation diagrams as well, and work ongoing with StarlingX as well as OpenStack. And following the StarlingX angle, we started to take a closer look at container technologies and container orchestration systems, and just really trying to understand how you can build these reference architectures using those. So we are looking into both containerized infrastructure services, as well as providing everything that containerized workloads need. We also did kind of a small survey during the, I believe that was the second session during the event, where we were asking people what option they are choosing when they are implementing their edge infrastructures, like running infrastructure services in containers or running containers only on top, or how they mix these to have a better understanding that we can then turn into testing and evaluation work. And back to the, I mentioned storage earlier. We have a recurring storage discussion during the PTG Edge sessions, because storage is still a bit of a conundrum in terms of how much space and resources you have available on the Edge side, how much data you want to move back to the central cloud for further analysis, or moving out to somewhere else to store the data persistently. So we were looking into some connecting use cases, like how CDN is evolving, content delivery networks, as well as video streaming, and how you process the video stream and maybe alter it before it goes live. And just really looking into how you can provide storage resources for these. And we were looking into the OOO distributed compute node architecture during these discussions, and how they are using and providing access to staff on the edge sites. And that solution is following the centralized control plane model to connect back to that as well. And last but not least, we also had cross-community collaboration, because we're working a lot with adjacent communities. So you can see that we met with Akrino, ETSIMAC, and GSMA, as well as StarlingX. We were really we're trying to use the opportunity to have a little longer time than just the weekly meetings, those 1 hour long sessions, to learn what these adjacent communities are doing, and also looking into further collaboration steps, like how we can apply the reference architecture models to Akrino blueprints, for instance, or how is ETSIMAC, their architecture is consuming infrastructure interfaces, for instance, that the services provides, that we are looking into. You can find the notes of the PTG on the Etherpad that I linked on the slide, and we will also put the links to the recordings on the wiki page on the previous slide, where you can listen back to all the sessions that we had. And with that, back to you, Kendall.
Thanks, Ildiko. Next, we have Julia Kreger to talk about Ironic.
Thank you. So I guess where to start is always the question one has to wonder. And for context, Ironic is a project that started from within OpenStack, I guess about 7.5, 8 years ago now. And its purpose is to manage bare metal systems at scale and really facilitate the orchestration and ultimately, I guess, make people's lives better. So this is one of those projects that has a lot of details, lots of moving parts, and it also means that a lot of the problems we have are very hard. It means that a lot of times we don't actually reach consensus, but we find the same common words, which is the real power of the PTG. In this past PTG, we actually intentionally ran sessions for both the US EU time zone and the US APAC time zone, really trying to build slightly different groups and collect their feedback into one place. And that was really powerful in that we can kind of get validation for one group on what the other group was saying, or maybe some disagreement. And ultimately, it really helps to build a better community to spread that out. So amongst topics we discussed was kind of where we see ourselves now and where we see ourselves in the next 5 years, We had some discussions about project leadership because personally, I've been doing it for 3 years. I need to hand it off. And a lot of this came to the point where we were starting to realize we need to do more outreach. We need to have better communication with our audience in terms of those that follow us or those that use our software through other projects. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is Ironic is buried inside other projects and you don't see it. It's kind of amusing because it's almost like the project you don't actually ever hear of until it breaks, which is awesome and scary at the same time. One of the major topics we also hit during the PTG was performance issues. It's a huge pain point for operators running at massive scale. And historically, it's been something that, my apologies, the corgi is expressing displeasure. But I feel like this is the first time I've ever been on live stream the corgi has disagreed. I'll try and wrap this up very quickly. But performance was a major topic that we had, and we dug into it, and we found a lot of opportunities for things to address, and hopefully we'll be seeing some of that over the next cycle. Additionally, above and beyond the technical work, we really kind of reached a lot of the same words and found opportunities where we could do better outreach, better communication, identify things we could do with the ironicbaremail.org website, which is, if you haven't visited, is kind of our simplified landing place instead of the original OpenStack docs, which are very verbose. I think that's it, and I think the corgi is demanding my attention, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, Julia and Corgi. Next, we have Stig Telfer to talk about the scientific SIG.
Hi, everyone. So I thought I'd start with a little introduction about what the scientific SIG is all about. Can we go to the first slide, please? And so these were actually the founding objectives from the SIG, which was way back in the one of the Austin summits, probably 4 years ago now. And I guess that we're aiming to solve a whole bunch of problems, but mostly the problem that we're really trying to solve is about knowledge and sharing it and sharing expertise. So when we look at the objectives, we have this sort of building of objectives around infrastructure, platforms, and applications. But the main one that seems to work particularly well with the scientific SIG is the social infrastructure component. And so that comes in mostly in real life, in-person summits where we gather together, do sessions, do talks, and then usually something social in the evenings. But the other area where it comes in strongly is around advocacy. So the scientific SIG is about advocating for research computing use cases within the OpenStack community, but also for advocating for OpenStack solutions in the wider sort of scientific computing and HPC environments as well. Mostly it's a forum. It's a Slack channel. It's got an open membership. It's about 120 members in there at the moment. We like to talk, share problems. It's a fairly social and friendly group. Occasionally the SIG will pull together and we'll work together and make something. And the book on the screen here is the major example of that. And you can get that from the download it for free from the OpenStack website as well. The Crossroads of Cloud and HPC. Next slide, please. So we like to get together and talk, but in a virtual context, of course, there's a bit more limited scope for doing that. But we did our best in the PTG, and we had a couple of sessions where we did a bunch of lightning talks with SIG members. The talks I've listed here, you can see that there's a good range of subjects covering all the levels of the stack, from infrastructure, platforms, and workloads, and also from a broad range of participants. So we have people talking from academia, from national labs, and from businesses within the scientific computing sector. But you don't have to take my word for it. Can we have the next slide, please? The talks are also available. So my colleague Marshall, our co-founder, recorded the talks, and they've been made available to the Open Infrastructure Foundation, and they've put them onto the YouTube channel. So rather than sort of paraphrasing the talks here, I encourage you to go and look them up and have a look for the ones that are interesting to you yourself. Next slide, please. So I hope this is a SIG that represents a great bunch of helpful people. It's a fairly vibrant community, and if you're into research computing and making it work in an OpenStack environment, I hope that you'll find that this is the SIG for you too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stig, and thank you all the speakers. So now is Q&A. So if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please drop those questions in the chat, and we will answer them. Tari wants to see the corgi.
The corgi occasionally gets posted on YouTube, Twitter. And for the record, the corgi's name is Gremlin, but we're talking about renaming him Zathras because it's his lot in life. And yes, that was a Babylon 5 reference. If those I didn't get it.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, then I just want to let everyone know about next week. We'll have an awesome OpenInfra Live episode lined up that I know we were all super excited about. Our own Jonathan Bryce and Mark Collier will be joined by Martin Casado, a VC partner at Anderson Horowitz and previous co-founder CTO of Nicera, the original SDN startup. Bruce Davey will also be joining us, a renowned computer scientist who helped create MPLS and co-authored a key computer science textbooks used in universities around the world. And last but not least, Amar Padmanabhan, who one of the leaders of the Magma open source core networking project and a member of our own Open Infrastructure Foundation board of directors. They will all be discussing the opportunities around connecting the globe, including leveraging open source technologies like Magma, software-based RAN, and OpenStack. So mark your calendars. Hope you are all able to join us next Thursday at 1400 UTC. And I want to thank all of our speakers today and all of you for joining. See you next week.